Let's get some reaction right now on recent developments within the DA. Joining us is political analyst Professor André Duvenhage as well as Sandile Swana. Remember to send us your comments as well and questions on WhatsApp to 072-110-5584 or call us on 010-594-6010 and do engage with us on X at Newzroom 405. Prof, I'll start with you. And I want us to look at these allegations firstly. The allegations of this alleged abuse of the DA's credit card, it has been the headline of this dispute. To begin with, how significant is this allegation that the party leader is accused of using DA funds for personal expenses, really, including making takeaways for his family?
Good evening, Tlantla. My assessment is that this is a serious matter. And the fact that the FedEx is putting this before the Federal Legal Commission is an indication that they regard this as very serious. We have also heard that this is not only implicating Dion George and John Steenhuisen, there are also other people implicated in this regard. However, I would like to make a more general statement in this regard, and that is that since the watershed election of 2024, we have seen a number of conflicts going on within political parties. It's ongoing within the ANC. I think the MK party has something like 5 or 6 secretary generals. There were problems in the EFF. There were a leadership change within the Freedom Front Plus. So it seems for me that parties are finding it difficult to balance their interests, for example, within the government of national unity on the one side, and then as an opposition party on the other side, mobilized in parliament. But I think this specific issue has everything to do with the demotion of Dion George. And as a result of that, he took a number of things up with the federal executive. He is, in fact, if you compare that to the ANC, the Treasurer General of the Democratic Alliance. And as a result of that, this get published in the media and a lot of developments happen. And at the moment, it has become a huge issue within the Democratic Alliance.
Mr. Swana, keen to hear from you on your observations as well of this apparent infighting within the DA. But from a governance point of view or standpoint, do these transactions and the alleged misuse of this party credit card, does it reflect a deeper problem or financial mismanagement problem within the DA?
Certainly, when there is abuse by top leadership of the funds or violation of financial procedures, in terms of the internal controls in any organization and setting the tone at the top, you should never allow that to happen, because a chap starts by stealing 50 rands, before you know it is on 50 billion, before you know it, it goes further. So the breach of controls is not about the size, it's about the principle itself. So it is serious. From a governance perspective, this is a very serious issue.
Prof, going back to you, Dion George, for instance, claims that he blocked the party's credit card to prevent further non-party transactions from what he describes. Do you view this as an act of principle, really, or is it part of a broader political confrontation between him and Steenhuisen?
I think it is a mix of both. There are principles involved, there's no doubt about it. We know that the Democratic Alliance is very strong when it comes to principle, to protocol, to procedure, to process. In that sense, it is very easy to make a case against an individual in terms of the Constitution and the application. The other side of the coin is, were there legitimate reasons for John Steenhuisen using that credit card? And I think that is the issue at stake at the moment. He is in a new portfolio, he's in a new position, he's playing the role of a minister. Maybe there were new demands within his position. But there may also be another context that is important, and that is that the Democratic Alliance would like to become more representative in terms of their representation within the government of national unity, giving room to an Afrikaans-speaking guy like Willie Okamp. In that sense, there may be other motives involved as well. So I believe this was a political decision, but it is a decision that is judged on basis of the Democratic Party's constitution, principle, and procedures with regard to finances.
Mr. Swana, as we continue to unpack the implications here, the public nature of this credit card scandal has really embarrassed the DA. Do you think this saga is being amplified by internal factions seeking leverage against Steenhuisen, the party leader?
It is clear from the reports of the spokesperson, and we had already heard prior when Helen Zille spoke, that there are supporters of both sides. So there is a political realignment, and the spokesperson makes this clear, that there is. Steenhuisen started this for political realignment, perhaps even with business interests and other interests, including the ethnic interests that are being mentioned here in the show. So there was already that, and it has divided the party. Then the question is, what is the fight bet? There is a fight bet. Now it's a street fight. And the Federal Council is trying to stop the street fight. But there are many other people. It's a factional battle.
Yeah. Professor, Mr. Swana calls it a street fight, really. But this dispute escalates at a time when the DA is heading toward an elective Congress. How has the scandal weakened Steenhuisen's authority at precisely that very moment that he needs to consolidate power within his own party?
There's no doubt that it will have an influence, but I think it is dependent on the outcome of the Legal Commission and how the Federal Executive Committee is going to react to this. I have no doubt that John Steenhuisen has a strong position within the DA, but it is highly likely that he will be contested during the election coming up, the electoral conference coming up April next year. And we know that there are candidates within the DA that can oppose him. The name of Gordon Hill Lewis is one name mentioned in this regard. Secondly, we know that there are also ideological differences, specifically with regard to the portfolio of environment. Either you follow a green line or you follow another type of environmental approach that is closer to, let's say, the hunting environment, etc. So there are differences in this regard, but I believe the outcome will be very decisive. And if the outcome is fine for John Steenhuisen, I can see that he is over one hurdle on the way to being re-elected April next year. But it can become difficult. It is clear that it is a democratic contest and you need to organize and mobilize support in order to achieve a majority. And some people will react negative to this scenario with regard to the leader, John Steenhuisen.
A quick reminder that we are in conversation with Professor André Duvenhage as well as Sandile Swana, speaking to them about this scandal that involves this alleged abuse of the DA's credit card by its party leader, John Steenhuisen. Let's take a call right now as well from Anonymous in Johannesburg. Anonymous, give us your view on this matter.
Yes, hello. Good evening to everyone. Yeah, I just want to say, man, this really exposes the truth about the DA. I mean, something for a scandal like this to pop up about John Steenhuisen, who's always been portrayed as this good governance, perhaps you could call him a white savior that is going to save South Africa from the rot of the ANC, and how the DA is better than every other party, or even better than the ANC in governance and in finance, and how Cape Town is doing better. I think this is the actual milestone or the tip of the iceberg tells us all in South Africa that the DA is no better than the ANC. They're actually the same thing. There's still corrupt leaders in the DA, whether they're white, whether they're African, whether they're colored. They still exist rot in all top structures of this country, in all governance. And being a voter, I think it is very crucial for us to, or even other voters, to think of structures outside of this parties that we see in Parliament, that we voted for, because none of them is clean. None of them is clean. I'm sure now André is talking about how this matter is going to be resolved by principle, because the DA is so principled. And I'd like to really, really concur with André, because this matter, they'll try to sugarcoat it and make Steenhuisen to look clean, as if it's clean, or as if the DA is clean in principle, when in actual fact it is not. It is rotten from the inside, and it's always portrayed as the saint of South Africa, or the saint of Cape Town that has better governance. They always want to put this Cape Town or Western Cape governance as this best governance that has no corruption. But this shows us that DA leaders, too, are in the rot of this country.
Anonymous joining us for this conversation as well, giving us his comments, saying this is simply the tip of the iceberg and could point to deeper problems within the DA. We continue this conversation after the break, and do remember to send us your comments and questions on WhatsApp 072-110-5584 or call us on 010-594-6010. Engage with us also on X. It's at Newzroom 405. We continue our discussion on the alleged abuse of a credit card by DA leader John Steenhuisen of the party's credit card for takeaways, amongst others. Joining us still is political analyst Professor André Duvenhage, as well as Sandile Swana. Remember to send us your comments and questions as well on WhatsApp at 072-110-5584. or call us on 010-594-010. Now engage with us on X as well at Newzroom 405. Let's also maybe take a quick look at some of the comments being made on WhatsApp. Anonymous says, this spat only goes to show the true colors of a politician, no matter which party they belong to, only there for the money and nothing else. They are useless, normal beings. That's Anonymous giving us his comments there. John McConaughey says George's only sin was overperformance, not underperformance, falsely accused. Steenhuisen has most to answer for, especially his personal financial woes, not fit to lead the DA. Reinstate George, sack Steenhuisen. That's a comment from John. Another comment there says that, good evening, Tlantla. Well, I think it's all about fighting for positions, misconduct within the party indirectly, and that could jeopardize or even tarnish the party's image. And things could be solved internally rather than taking things to public. That's not how leaders should behave. That's Nwako from Botlokwa Mukumeni. Let's go back to our guest right now. Continue with you, Mr. Sandile Swana, speaking about this issue. Very interesting for me is that you often critique parties for suppressing internal dissent. Does this Steenhuisen George clash then reveal deeper problems within the DA, that despite its image, it's still struggling with competing, or rather competing centers of power ahead of this all-important Congress?
Yeah, I think that there are a number of things we have to consider. The first one is that I'll say it up front. The truth is the truth. Truth must not be suppressed. Finishing that. If you don't want the truth to come out, don't do that thing that is now the truth. Number two, and maybe after the show, you guys can look into it, whether there is a pattern of poor judgment on the part of Steenhuisen. Because my own little background research shows me that 10 years ago, he resigned his position because he had a long-term relationship with the wife of Mike Beaumont, who's now in the Action SA. So his sense of judgment as a leader, I think, needs to be looked at. So overall, I would say that the party does need to look, and South Africa, like the ANC has got many repeat offenders. All sorts of people there who repeat and repeat and repeat. So those things the DA needs to delve into depth into it so that its reputation over the longer term, the reputation of the DA is protected. So when people say that Steenhuisen is strong, it must not be because he can survive any scandal, that the top leadership of the DA protects Steenhuisen one way or the other. If the chairpersons, provincial chairpersons got together and came as a finance committee, national finance committee, to a determination that they must take action against Steenhuisen, that is extremely serious. It cannot be washed. Let's just swept under the carpet, no matter who says Steenhuisen is strong.
Yeah. Professor Duvenhage, Helen Zille has intervened and effectively placed a gag order on those involved. Is this move being seen, at least in your view, to protect Steenhuisen heading to Congress, or is it simply damage control here on the part of the party?
Well, I'm reading it more in terms of damage control in terms of the party. We know that the Democratic Alliance has strong processes, internal protocols, etc. And there are lines in which people can lay complaints and deal with it one way or another. And I think Helen Zille intervened in order to safeguard the party from negative publicity. I think that is the prime motive at this point. But there's no doubt that this is a problem for Steenhuisen. But I think if we look at political parties in general, you will always find forms of misconduct within more or less any environment. That is not the problem. The problem is how you deal with this in a proper way. Therefore, the real test for the Democratic Alliance at this point is how they are going forward with this matter. How is this going to influence the electoral process in April? And how is it going to impact on their electoral campaign towards the end of 2026? In that sense, it's more about the party than about the individual.
Mr. Swana, also interesting is that some DA insiders say the credit card dispute is simply being used or being weaponized by rival blocs within the DA. What's your reading into this? How much of this saga is actually about leadership succession rather than financial ethics?
The financial misconduct is a matter of fact. Either the records, the bank records and so on, show that you've abused the credit card or not. So we must not confuse that issue with politics. But there is a political issue that the spokesperson of the DA, before we spoke, actually clarified that they are realigning with the commercialization of that sector, basically. They are looking after business interests as opposed to stronger sustainability and conservation. So that ideological split is there. This is an ideological split. Now, we must not confuse those ideological battles with actual misconduct. Now, when you say your misconduct is being weaponized, then we're going to break down the system of governance. Then we bring in whataboutism. It can be a coincidence that we are caught now, or even if we are caught next year or caught now, once you are caught, you are caught. Let's deal with the fact that you are caught.
Let's get more of your calls right now. Speaking to Loiso in Makanda. Loiso, what do you make of this situation? Is this simply being an issue that's being weaponized here? Or what do you make of the happenings within the DA? Give us your comment.
Firstly, I think the words that are being used, the words that really create an impression that it's just a spat. It's not a spat. There is an internal crisis within the Democratic Alliance. And I'm sure if this was happening within the ANC, you would be calling it exactly what it is. You would be saying that it is a faction, that leaders are fighting, that the party is divided, and so on and on. Now, the angle here and the emphasis is that this is just a spat. Someone has just used a credit card. But that's not the issue. The issue here, when you look at this from outside the Democratic Alliance,
you can see that it is a fight amongst leaders, and it's a build-up to the National Conference of the Democratic Alliance, which will be taking place in April next year. And these people are fighting for positions. That's what is happening. So there's an internal crisis within the Democratic Alliance. And I'm appealing to the analysts and all of us to see it in that way. It is not just a spat, and that's the point that I'm trying to make from my side.
Thanks a lot, Loiso in Makanda, saying this is not just a spat, but could even be factions within the Democratic Alliance as well. Let's get your view, Professor Duvenhage. But before we do, maybe let's take a quick break and unpack this issue a bit further. Also, Dion George's refusal to accept a demotion, this also being interpreted as a sign of internal resistance. We unpack that with our guest, that's Professor André Duvenhage, as well as Sandile Swana, joining us for this discussion. Do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us, and thank you for also continuing as we look into the conversation with our panelists, that's André Duvenhage as well as Mr. Sandile Swana, unpacking all the happenings in the DA and this internal spat that we see playing out within the party as well. Prof, let me continue with you. Dion George's refusal to accept a demotion, I mean, this is being seen as, or rather interpreted as, a sign of internal resistance. Could this even embolden a faction to challenge Steenhuisen at the elective Congress next year?
Well, I would like to make 2 points in this regard. The first one is that I don't think there are serious problems within the Democratic Alliance as far as financial control is concerned. I don't think they are a corrupt party. I think they are relatively well managed. I'm not saying there is not the normal type of problems. But the phase we are entering, that is the second point I like to make. The phase we are entering is a phase where democracy is coming into play. And the moment you are building up towards any election, the democratic system is becoming unstable. We can see that in the build-up during any election. Look at what happened with the Trump election a year ago and so on. So I think what we are looking at is definitely mobilization and organization of support in the build-up to the conference of the Democratic Alliance. And as a result of that, there's a number of issues that start surfacing. And I think there's definitely a leadership challenge for Mr. Steenhuisen. He may be in a strong position at the moment, but I believe that from a number of sectors, on a provincial level and on a national level, he may see people competing for certain positions. It is by no means clear-cut that he is an automatic choice after April 2026.
Yeah. Mr. Swana, the DA is a key player, especially in coalition politics in the country. How does a weakened or even contested Steenhuisen affect the DA's credibility with coalition partners going into the Congress?
I don't think that is a problem per se. A person like Dion George, for instance, and I think there are many more in the DA, is a sample of the depth of leadership talent within the DA. It's not that, like people would say in the ANC, which I don't agree with, that there's only one candidate, that is Cyril Ramaphosa. Absolutely nobody can replace him. Those are just far-fetched ideas. So in the DA, there is sufficient talent. In South Africa, there's just a lot of talent. So anybody must be contested, and anybody, for instance, you don't hear people saying that the removal of Dion George was weaponizing the position of the leader of the caucus by Steenhuisen, that was a weaponized demotion. So it's only Dion and company who are weaponizing things. The contest must be there and people must win. But I must add, just for the sake of emphasis, that the issue, for instance, of the credit card was not decided by one man. It appears that the committee is made up of provincial treasurers. So it came from all sorts of provinces. and treasurers to actually agree that this is an offense. So the offense is there. Let us not weaponize the offense. The offense is an offense. But the ANC and the members of the GNU cannot be panicked by the fact that in the DA there's a contest against Steenhuisen per se. No. If you look, I mean, these people are in coalitions all over the country. I mean, just today we're discussing the coalition in George. All over, these coalitions are all over and they are changing forever. And the country moves on.
Yeah. Professor Duvenhage, as we start winding our conversation down, do you believe this saga is deepening ideological or even generational divides inside the DA? And might these divisions shape how delegates even vote at the 2026 Congress?
I have no doubt that there are a combination of reasons involved. Some of them are personal, others are ideological. At essence, it's about positioning people and certain groupings before a very important election. But at the same time, the ideology is a factor, and if managed the wrong way, it can have a very negative impact on the support base of the party. And we have seen in recent surveys, especially in the metropoles, that the DA support base was on the increase, and they are in some areas competitive to the ANC. Now, this factor may influence the DA in a negative way if not managed in a proper way.
Right. A similar question to you, Mr. Swana. Looking ahead, what do you think is more likely? Steenhuisen emerging strengthened this time around with a renewed mandate, or this scandal, or the Uber Eats scandal, triggering deeper fractures and possible leadership realignment within the DA?
If it is found that there is an offense that was committed by Steenhuisen, and it appears to the public and to the followers of the DA that there's a cover-up by the leadership, that will change the profile and the standing of the DA. I'm not saying the votes will reduce. I mean, South African voters are very tolerant of this type of scandal. They like the grave. So I don't think it will be like that. But I think for the future of South African politics, we need to get out of this idea of saying our politicians are forever getting into one scandal or the other, and we need to find ways of accommodating them.
Yeah. And also, as we end, Professor Duvenhage, you warned just a short while ago against the DA, or rather warning the DA over its handling of this matter, and also warning if it's managed the wrong way. But what does the right way actually look like for you?
Well, the right way is quite simple. The party has a constitution, it has certain processes, certain structures. They must take this issue through proper structural processes and come to a decision and finalize the process. The sooner the better, and not going the ANC way where there's literally not decisions when influential people are involved. In that sense, a quick decision to clarify the position of Steenhuisen is very critical at this point.
Let me thank my guests, Sandile, Swana, as well as Professor André Duvenhage, helping us make sense of this scandal that has rocked the DA. The party leader, John Steenhuisen, being accused of abusing the party's credit card for buying even takeouts for his family. Let's take a look at more of your WhatsApp messages. One coming from Michael right now saying, Dion is fighting back for being demoted. I don't think Steenhuisen can risk his position in the party with leadership elections just around the corner by misusing the credit card of the party. He probably had reasons to use the credit card for personal expenses, which appears to be food, at least this time around. That's a word from Michael, also adding his voice to this discussion. Nelson also commenting, saying that Steenhuisen must come out clean. The integrity of the organization, that's the DA, is in danger.